We're live.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Coffee Moaners here on YouTube and on podcast. Welcome. How are you doing? Nice to see all those people that joined the wasn't a workshop, little 20-minute breath. I don't know what you call it, class that we had over on Instagram.
What sort of breathing were you doing today?
Right.
In and out?
We were doing like energizing, clearing out other people's shit. I love our yoga teacher. She's so brilliant, isn't she? Why should you carry other people's shit? I call it the bog off move.
Right.
The ancient art.
What about everyone having to live with your breathing? What about the breathing being something that someone else has to live with?
I know. I was trying to find a place where nobody would hear me. I think I'm going to get myself a yoga shed.
And also, what I've noticed with you is you go into this kind of. I don't know if you're aware you do this. It's very sweet.
When he says it's very sweet, it's going to be something complete. He thinks very sweet gives him the card to say whatever.
Carte blanche.
So carry on.
Carte blanche.
The carte blanche. The card to do anything.
White card. Is carte blanche.
Card to do anything.
You go. Okay. I've noticed that it's almost like you have a wire that comes from the top of your head, and like just now it can be read as, and you know, and I said, are you all right? Because I said something and you do this. Does anyone else do this who does yoga and needs a little bit better taste? She went like this. She went like you're above anyone saying anything.
What the fuck?
No.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about breath work and
no, you're not.
The whole mindfulness thing leads you to a really odd sense of I'm immune to everyone.
Do you know what I'm actually doing? Is that when I do the breath work, well, Ashley, just because you're laughing too doesn't mean he gets away with it.
Carte blanche.
What are you actually doing? When I do the breath work, you have to sit and it's reminding you, because all the rest of my family, the kids and Mark, all stand like this. They've all got, yes, you all do this. So I'm constantly reminding myself to I'm so glad it looks like I've got a wire in the middle, because that's what she says.
Yeah, it's not the wire.
I'm going to play this to Rachel.
The wire is good. It's the sort of, I am immune from the trifling nonsense of others. I will not...
God, you're such
be knocked.
Wanker. Such an arsehole.
I will not be knocked.
Such a total arsehole.
I will not be knocked. Anyway, Abby Reid, Nadia, do you know about the Freedom Flotilla? We do. We must raise awareness. 1,000 activists risking their lives to take aid to Gaza. Absolutely. I mean,
incredible story.
Incredible story. There are so many things.
Well, not story, real life.
There are so many aspects of the Gaza and Israel crisis. In fact, Nadia was just talking about it just before this live, about how... I really like what you just said about, is it Bassem? Is that his name? The comedian / surgeon, Egyptian surgeon, who in an interview with James O'Brien, what you just said really, something that really snags you as the truth of the matter. People are really keen to race on with the story. And I think
that's too horrific.
No, I don't think it's just about it being horrific. It's the narrative. They need people to move on so no one focuses on it. Of course. And it's truly troubling the extent to which we are being controlled to not think about, explore, and forever. Now, of course, one can't have wall-to-wall discussion of it. Otherwise, one would lose one's mind. We have the luxury of not having to face it all the time. Even in Gaza, get this, just finally on this point, even in Gaza, God forbid, did you see how furious various Israeli commentators were on the news? Because Gazans had dared to go onto the beach and laugh.
He was told I
saw
this guy saying they should all be killed.
And then people who should have known better in this country were like, and they say it's terrible there. So you're not only denied infrastructure, life, freedom, you're also denied the ability to have laughter. Because if you do, it tells you that it's not actually as bad as it was.
Oh yeah, I saw that. But anyway, we're going to do a separate video.
Oh my God.
On Gaza today. We need to. There's too much being pushed under the carpet. Yeah. So we're going to do a whole video on what we feel is just being... We've already forgotten, haven't we, about the people shot in the car? They've moved on from that.
The people shot
moved on from the mass graves.
The mass graves of women and children. Hang on. But also, let's not just also forget, but we haven't moved on from the fictionalized accounts of so many atrocities that didn't happen on October the 7th.
We've no apologies made since. But That'll be a separate video.
Okay, what we're talking about? We're going to talk about baby reindeer backlash. If any of you have been watching it, there is a backlash, and it's an interesting one. Female doctors are safest. This is a recent study suggesting that if you have a female doctor, you might live longer. You won't die. And a mother and baby were thrown out by a stand-up comedian in Australia. This isn't the first time. She was breastfeeding. It was making noise. He said, "Would you mind leaving?" And there's been sort of split opinions on that. And finally, showmances. I like that name for it. The idea that there are many romances in the public field, in the public area, that aren't real. They're merely there for money. A bit like us. What do you want to start with, Nat?
You just kick along. I don't mind.
What's something like that?
Oh my God.
You just kick
Oh
along?
my fucking Christ. You're going to drive me mad.
What do you fancy?
Listen, what do you...
Why don't we do female doctors? Okay. What's the story? Jack and Ori.
Well, basically, you're going to live longer if you're a female doctor than you are a male doctor. That's the headline. I mean, the thing is, I have found our actual GP is lovely, isn't he? The guy who's surgery. I think it's his surgery. He's wonderful. But when there's a couple, well, I mustn't like name these people, but there's a particular GP that I spoke to once, and I actually couldn't believe how pompous he was. I ended up having a fight with him, didn't I? A row with him. So don't tell me about my menopause. He did not listen. He was not interested, and he was telling me, and I was like, listen, I know more about menopause than you do, matey flip. Now, every time I speak to a woman at the GP, if it's about menopause, if it's about anything female, there is a different kind of listening. And it's just as simple as that. And if you think about in life, I think women listen more closely than men do. So he's not listening. Right. Every single one of my friends say that their partners never listen to a single word that they say. Most men, I find, have selective hearing. So as they get older, they pretend they're losing their hearing, or that they've got wax in their ear or whatever. But then if you whisper the teeniest little thing that might be to do directly with them, wow, they hear like
There's
that.
An edge to this today, isn't there?
The other thing is, and you do hear this a lot from women, is when women are trying to talk about their pain to men, especially when it's gynecological pain, there's again a real disparity between the way that generally that male doctors will listen, will respond to that compared to female doctors. Have you ever had a female doctor?
Yeah, when I was growing up, we had a female doctor, or I had a female doctor as a kid. I mean, the weird thing is that
I love our doctor. He's lovely.
I think the most interesting part of this is, I don't want to talk about the specifics because I don't want to throw anyone under a bus, but I know for a fact that in certain diagnostic situations with mental health, there's been what I would call a brisk bravura to the diagnosis, the assessment, the treatment, the assumptions made about my mental health. In my journey towards bipolar diagnosis, I have felt the hand of, in therapy and in mental health, with mental health experts, a real kind of almost masculinized kind of, brio around how to deal with things. So I think, and I've just come out.
Of course, you're massively generous.
Yeah. No. But I do think that there is, for example, another small example is, I don't understand why there are. I'm sorry to say this. I don't understand why any woman would want to go to a male gynecologist. I've never understood it.
In a million years, go to a male gynecologist. I just cannot understand it. It just never happened. If I was desperate for a smear and I got there and it was a man, I just wouldn't have it done.
And I think it speaks to, especially, I hear lots of stories in the world of surgery. When you used to do City Hospital, you came across this sometimes. There's a real kind of machismo and there's a macho aspect to, to the medical establishment, like there is with many. I mean, I'm sure that it's slowly shifting and changing across time. But and this isn't to say that all male doctors aren't. This is not an attack on male doctors.
This article,
but it's just interesting that the statistics show that hospital patients treated by women are less likely to die. So if you have a scientific or a sort of a survey or a research project that finds this out, it begs the question, why? It says the mortality rate for male patients treated by female doctors was 10.15%, less than the 10.323% for male physicians. It's a very, very slim percentage.
And that could be down to chance.
Yeah, it could be down to chance.
But I think we just thought it was worth a discussion, because I think we've both felt that.
Well, Claire Cohen does an opinion piece in the Times today. And really, just in her byline to her headline, she says it and puts it simply, they're just better listeners. And I don't think that's about listening to mental health. I think that's about genuinely listening to the whole person.
Well, I mean, Kaz, and we must get, my friend Kaz, Titsoff, she suffered just horrendously with endometriosis. And I just literally can't believe what she went through, Mark, for decades, literally for decades, until finally she met this amazing, just in the NHS, female gynecologist. And she said she couldn't believe what she found, what a terrible state Kaz was in with her endometriosis. And that meant she couldn't have children. She wasn't listened to. She was in a terrible pain. She would have to use so many pads. She just didn't listen. And we do hear over and over again that that's a lot of women's experience. If you go on YouTube, just for instance, if you go on YouTube and you pump in men and period pains, right? Men trying the period pain machine. It's absolutely hilarious how they're crying and screaming and crawling across the floor. And they put it on the women, and the women just going, yeah.
Well, another
and yet so often women will have male doctors telling them that their pain isn't bad and it's in the mind, and they've kind of got to get on with it. And I've heard that often.
I think one of the interesting aspects of this research project also is the idea that some women or female patients perhaps under sort of emphasize or don't feel they can be fully open about certain symptoms. And so things get hidden from men. But I would argue, actually, with that in mind, I've done the same thing the other way around with female doctors.
Yeah,
so
I get that. Like, are you really going to go into the ins and outs of your penis problem if you're talking to a woman?
Exactly.
And if I am not going to talk to a man, it's a really good point, a male doctor, in the same way that I am a female doctor about... But aside from gynecological and penis things, just generally, I just think that it's a really good point. Maybe the patient shares better with a woman.
That's what I mean. I don't think it's necessarily even the fault necessarily of the physician or the gender of the physician. It might just be. I mean, I think you can have sort of, gender determined sort of traits, which, as I've just described, I would characterize many people that I have met in sort of the mental health diagnosis. The men have been much more sort of brisk and much more sort of masculine, basically, and not necessarily. I didn't feel as heard, if I'm honest. I didn't feel as heard, and so that resonated for me when I heard the listening. But I don't think the listening is just about listening to what you're saying. I think it's listening to symptoms. When I was actually, like, for example, with my mum in a consultation with a neurologist, we both fell in love with this woman. She was so all-encompassing. She listened to everything. Not only listened to everything, and sat and thought. And then she asked me and listened and thought. It's not very few people these days ask a question, stop, listen, and think.
I was with a friend the other day in a hospital, and oh my God, the way that this doctor spoke to her, I wanted to run down the corridor after him. He was so pompous.
Oh, right.
He was like irritated immediately. Oh my God, it made me so angry. But it is, we're talking from all our own experiences, aren't we? And there are so many, obviously, that are very different. Faith being one. My gyno was male and lovely. He did my hysterectomy and histology. He was a really great listener. Of course. I mean, we are massively generalising.
Yeah, no, this is based upon research as well. This isn't necessarily, and one's own experiences isn't everyone's experience.
Yeah, we're generalising with our own experiences is what I mean.
But. And I've always just held, I don't know why, maybe it was because I was brought up by my mum and that book I bought Nadia over Christmas called Eve, in which most of medical kind of breakthroughs or analysis or thoughts or development of kind of procedures has always pivoted around, hasn't embraced the female body. One sort of wonders, the gynecological thing is a curious one for me.
Carla, it depends on the doctor's bedside manner. I can see how some women feel uncomfortable, but my male doctor saved my life. He really cares about his patients.
Yeah.
It's like our GP. He is so lovely.
He's adorable.
He's so
he is adorable.
avuncular.
Oh, he's lovely.
I love him. And my GP, when I was growing up, was called Dr. Foster. We went to
really?
Gloucester, yeah.
Oh, how funny.
Not the crackhead that was also in the GP.
Careful.
No, another, I had the good one in our area.
Crackhead?
Yeah.
What, literally?
Yeah, he was addicted to crack. Not my GP.
Oh.
Dr. Foster was lovely. He was lovely. But another GP, it was all discovered he had an addiction. No, it was.
Well,
they found his office all in terrible disarray.
Many doctors. Has anyone seen Dead Ringers with David Craig? I mean, obviously that didn't really happen. Jeremy Irons, it's very good. Yeah, addiction and doctor.
Addiction doctors. Addiction, apparently. Oh,
Who wants to talk to a male doctor about periods, though, says Zoe. Always downplayed from my experience.
Yeah. I don't fancy
No, okay.
But what I would say, I was talking to this doctor and he was saying, I did a show with him, he was so lovely, and he was saying, the problem is, he said, a lot of people decide very young that they want to be a doctor, or their parents do. So right from the minute in school, everything is study, because you've got to get straight A's. And now it's even harder to get into even if you're a bloody genius at school, because doctors' places are taken by foreign students, because universities need the cash. And so you study, then you go to med school, study. And he said, I just didn't get enough human interaction, communication. And then there was very little time spent within the course of actually how to deal and how to talk to patients. So I think sometimes, especially when they're younger doctors, they might come across a certain way, but it's actually because they haven't had enough experience yet they're all up here, and that's great, but they haven't got much experience on dealing and talking to people.
I think I seem to remember one of your friends, someone who'd gone through their experience of cancer diagnosis or experience. I do think that, is there a charity? There should be some kind of campaign to help, not because I'm not naming and shaming, because I think doctors are under enormous pressure with time constraints. And I feel it even with our lovely doctor. You go in, you've got an allotted amount of time. They're kind of crestfallen because they want to reach out.
The Macmillan nurses are just so wonderful. They're often in when people get a diagnosis.
But I do sometimes think that some sort of guidance or kind of not education, but courses in how to deal with language would be useful in some instances.
I think it's the nurses that take more of that, don't they?
Okay, let's move on to let's talk about Baby Reindeer. This is a tricky one and it's a frustrating one. I've seen the whole stage play, so I kind of know what happens, but I haven't seen the whole series. We're sat at episode 2 at the moment. We're going to try and catch up and watch it. It's the most trending show running around, which I think is so brilliantly refreshing when you think that this was an Edinburgh Fringe show 5 years ago. The creator of it, Richard Gadd, was transferring to Broadway. I contacted him after it to say how fantastic it was, and he was like, "Yes, we're off to Broadway." Then the pandemic, and he said, "Oh, you're not going to believe it. The fucking pandemic's landed, and it's been scrapped and pulled." And it was like, "Oh no!" But it's literally caught alight like mad, and it's landing big in America. Hugely successful for the performers, the writer. We kind of know I know what happens. Nadia less so because she hasn't seen.
Maddie gave me a spoiler yesterday.
Yes, exactly. Incredibly challenging watch, and I know a lot of people. So I'm not going to do any spoilers. Jules the Apprentice. Don't worry, I'm not going to do any spoilers. But suffice it to say, if it comes back as a stage play, please see it because it's far.
Eppington saw it on the stage as well.
Eppington, in a weird way, it's far more unsettling. I know a lot of people are finding the series unsettling, but the show.
You came back. You were all freaked out by it, weren't you? And it was just him on a stool and telling the story.
Yeah, and it's very rare. There was something about the theatricality of it that cannot be captured on TV. There's that aspect of it that I can't even begin to explain what it was without doing a spoiler.
I feel really sorry for him because it's turning into a little bit of a nightmare for him, isn't it?
It's becoming a nightmare for him. Now he's delighted. The actress is also delighted. I think I've found an interview.
I just got a message from Lee saying
Jessica Gunning, who plays his stalker. I think
she's astonishing. Look, from Lee, the female actress, probably perhaps one of the most incredible I've seen in a very long time. Lee, I don't know if you're watching. I completely agree. Yeah. We've only watched 2 episodes, but I just found her incredible.
And her name, which is Jessica, let's give her a shout out, Jessica Gunning. Obviously, in the play, there was no woman actually there, which in many ways led us to think.
But there was a voiceover, right?
Yeah, but more than that, I don't want to ruin it. But there were so many aspects to how she was represented in the theatre that I felt when I heard the show was coming, they're not going to be able to relay that sense of contradictory menace. And what's so clever about the whole thing, and this isn't a spoiler, don't worry, is the way in which I think Richard Gadd, the creator, accepts, indulges in, and shares his own culpability
within it. Because on the first few episodes, again, I'm not a spoiler, I'm like, oh my God, why did he do that? And why did it? But you said that all sort of.
And I think it's really interesting, that connection that he felt he needed to have in order, was he a failed comic? She was like, all this kind of stuff. But anyway, the backlash that's coming from this is huge numbers of people, online detectives, as they call them. I think that's
which happens with every single thing you do on the internet. If you say something, somebody is going to go and investigate it.
Yeah, I think
and actually, I feel for him that he probably had no idea just how much that would happen. And I worry that, really Netflix, I think, should have.
Well, with all due respect, I think they will have gone through an enormous kind of duty of care issues and analysis.
Because people are trying to find who she is.
Well, and they feel they found her. And that's incredibly dangerous because, of course, at the heart of it, whoever this person is, maybe isn't.
I'm not interested.
Well, not interested, but also there's someone there with a deep, obviously mental health illness. And there is a duty. And isn't it curious how, interestingly, again, I'm trying to really tiptoe around not spoiling this. The idea, this is really interesting thematically. I just want to go there for a minute. Let the film study student go there for a minute. The idea that thematically, the actress playing the stalker has implored people to not do this. She said, when we were making this, Richard Gadd and myself, we went to great lengths to really distance what we're doing from who it could be. They did everything in their powers to shift and change some of the actual accuracies and details of what they said, even the content of just some of the messages. That's because it's a true story.
Over-dramatized as well.
What do you mean, is it
over? Is it exaggerated?
Well, I think they've had to, and I think they've done that as an act of duty of care. I think that's why they've had to steer it away a bit. But here's the thing. Richard Gadd, once again, strangely finds him in a place where he's having to protect his stalker. And so this becomes almost the next chapter in this incredibly symbiotic relationship, which the entire series is about. And where we were left at the end of the theatrical show, where I am not exaggerating, I was with Maddie, a friend of Maddie's, and Kit. We were like this. We were like,
when you came,
we looked around the theatre and everyone tiptoed out. I don't want to say why, but everyone tiptoed out. And the idea that this has happened, again, is really weird. And it won't be lost on Richard, on the guy who created it. It really won't.
Because they were in the article that this was in, they were saying, do you remember with Fleabag, when it was like, she had to make an apology to her family, didn't she?
Yeah.
And it was nowhere near anything like this, but straight away the sleuths get onto it and they want to find everybody. Just don't. Yeah.
Dave Gustav, is there any difference between the show and any other true crime drama? Yes, I think in execution, I think in the writing, I think in the fact that it happened to him, and I think in
his brutal honesty about himself. I think that's the thing. Head
and shoulders above all that sort of stuff.
It was naive, though, really, for him to think that if you say a truth, of course, part of why it's such a success is because it is a true story.
Exactly.
But as I found out a couple of years ago, the most shocking thing ever, apart from the fact that showmances can be real, which we're going to talk about in a minute, was when Mark said to me, it doesn't have to be true when they say it in a film.
I know, I love that. The idea
I still haven't got over it.
It's the Coen brothers you've got to thank for that. At the beginning of Fargo, they say this is based on a true story. It's not.
And I was like, can you believe it? And he said, it's not. And I couldn't get over it. Because I was like,
I think it's still a bit
they can say it's based on a true story, and it's not. Did you know that, guys? It doesn't have to be based on a true story. But why do they say that? Because it's so much more interesting when it's based on.
No, but they were being meta. They were making the point that you should never trust. What is a true story? Whose truth are we talking? Let's not go to.
No, but that's too meta. Just generally,
but
you could have watched something you thought was a true story, and they could have lied, and they're allowed to lie.
Yeah. Look, Zoe Agnew ruined movies for me after that. But I don't know.
I know. It's like now every time I see a true story, I go,
Well, I tell you,
doesn't have to be.
I tell you what they need to do on films like Back to Black and things like that is they need to say not based on a true story.
No.
Okay, let's talk about.
Do watch our review on Back to Black.
Yes.
But also make a promise to yourself that you watch the documentary of Amy Winehouse's life.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Showmances. Let's talk about this. This is a piece that I pulled, and again, I love the fact that you're slightly shocked by this.
I've been in show business for 35 years, right? And you always hear about, it's just a showmance. It's just a showmance.
Oh, by the way, at the end, we're going to be announcing the winners of the moth cocktails. Sorry.
And I'm like, no, people don't make up a whole romance. But they do. I mean, they do. I mean, I remember when I was first in EastEnders and there was a particular, and I discovered that people told paparazzi where they were.
That surprised you.
Oh my God. So, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what? So they actually give them the address and everything? And they were like, yeah. I said, why? So naive. I must have looked like such a fucking idiot. I was like 30 or something, but I'd done all like stage and stuff like that. I had no idea. And they went, I said, but why? I said, well, to get them like publicity. I was like, oh, right. And then this person said to me, and I said, and what? Money. I went, where did they get the money from?
Oh, right. Okay. You're really stupid.
They share it with this is a long time ago. The paparazzi pay them. Yeah. They share the money, Mark.
Well, back then it was definitely like that. And Faith Goodman saying Married at First Sight Australia, Jack and Tori are fake showmances. It's a problem. I often thought Ekin-Su and Davide were
I
don't
think Jack and Tori are fake. I think Jack's fake. I don't think Tori is. So she couldn't act what she's acting.
What's the peg for this story? So this is the story that Chloe Burrows, I've never heard of her, has faked a romance with Harry Johnson to test if it would boost her earnings.
Chloe, do you remember her, Chloe?
Oh, was that her?
That's the one I used to do the impressions of. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, this is good. This is a documentary. It's available to stream tonight called, we should watch it, Untold Love in the Limelight. And this is her basically creating a totally fictionalized relationship with a complete stranger, getting photos taken, wearing certain clothes, being approached or approaching certain agents. I mean, I'd have thought influencer agencies and agents are going to be now kind of like, oh, crikey,
but I mean,
careful, everyone.
Oh, does she do that undercover?
I think it's all I think what they're trying to do is unpick and unpeel the fact that this is all nonsense. And she's shown that she could earn, I think it's like $250,000 in the year from just kind of popping around and going out.
Now,
and wearing this.
I've always believed that there can be one person who's pretending that they like somebody, so they get, so that they can get. But I
wouldn't have the strength, for fuck's sake.
I didn't believe. I just didn't believe that two people would do that.
See, it's weird because I think I struggle sometimes with these shows because I think that's what they're all strategizing behind. It's like Britain's Got Talent. They call in TikTok performers to win, and then it's all fixed.
Well, when I was in Big Brother, there was something that used to happen at night time, but never used to happen in the daytime.
What was that?
And I couldn't work it out. I was going, what's going on? Huh?
What was it?
What do you mean?
What happened at night time?
No, because I would be like chatting away all day, but a lot of people did nothing, and they rested all day. And then it would come to the evening and they would suddenly be these other people like flirting in the hot tubs and stuff. And I was thinking, is that weird the way they like never flirt in the day and they never talk? It wasn't until I came out and I was telling you everything. And that was like, well, yeah, that's what they've all been told to do.
Oh, I see.
Because they all had boyfriends. Anyway, one of them told me, and she said, I'm picking carefully again, that she had a full-on boyfriend and what she would refer to something, I don't know, I'm not going to say it now because I don't want it to be real. It's like she'd say, oh, my teddy bear. And that was a message to her boyfriend that she was talking about him.
Fucking hell.
Because when she was in there, she would pretend she didn't have a boyfriend.
Right, I see. Okay.
I mean, can you imagine how complicated that is? Sometimes on Loose Women, if I don't want to say, it might be Mark. No. If I'm telling you like a bit of a naughty story and I don't want to say the person's name, you see me tripping all over myself trying not to say the name.
God.
And the other Loose Women will go, oh God, Nadia, you're so funny because we can see it trundling towards you. And I'm like, try not to say the name. So how somebody can be that, have that amount of complication going on and pull it off is beyond me.
I'm not at all.
How they don't put their foot in it, I don't know.
I'm not at all surprised by showmances whatsoever. I
One person, but two people to agree to it. Just totally make it up.
Yeah, I think that's why people go into love. I don't trust any of the relationship. I think that's a problem for things like that.
Don't you?
No, not at all. I don't think we're dealing with the reality of people actually falling. They're looking at what's the back end on this, and where do we go?
Yes, I mean they're going to be more open maybe to liking somebody that they might not like.
Hannah Leach shoots. It's an old Hollywood technique. I mean, it's true.
The old Hollywood, of course. But then they would just put them together in a car and they'd arrive somewhere. Yeah. But to actually do the whole thing, moving in, going out. Jesus.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we were going to talk about a woman who was thrown out of a theatre for breastfeeding her baby, but we're not. We're going to announce...
Well, no, it wasn't because she was breastfeeding. It was because the baby was making noise.
Yeah, but, it was mithering. It was making sound.
You don't get to do everything you did before you had a baby.
This is a stand-up comedian who said, would you mind leaving? He said very politely because it was disturbing him. I mean...
Listen, people be surprised about this because I'm all women, but actually, I do absolutely agree with him.
Yeah, I do.
Because...
I do.
People always want to do exactly everything that they do. You have a period of time and you have a baby.
You just can't go to the theatre, mate.
And that's part of it, that you can't do everything that you did before you had a baby. There is a certain amount of sacrifice.
You all know my fear of toddlers. There's nothing, hell hath no fury like when you've booked to go and see a film at the Ritzy at 11 a.m. on a Sunday.
Accidentally.
And you arrive and it's the baby screaming session.
But that's your fault. Then.
No, that was my fault. I ran literally with my hair ignited and on fire.
A lot of theatres now do noisy sessions, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
If you're a stand-up comedian,
like you,
and you're trying to get your beat, your bum bum bum, and this baby, it's very hard.
Nadia does lots of noisy sessions that go beat bum bum boo. Okay, we're now going to announce the winners of the moth cocktail competitions. There were two potential winners. One under the Curly Cooks. One under On the Piste with Lee Peart.
If you haven't seen On the Piste with Lee Peart, Mark will put the link underneath here so you can watch it.
And what did you see yesterday?
I watched episode 2 yesterday. It's a 25-minute episode because it's like a warm-up this week. It's so good. I tell you, we have discovered a star in Lee. I'm telling you that. And you guys are all part of that. He's going to go... So watch it and be a part of his rise to fame.
Or alcoholism. So the winner underneath...
Can I just say, beautifully made programme. Really beautifully made programme by this one. When you think...
It's a very nice show.
Shot it, edited it, directed
That's what you do.
Talks in it. He does the whole damn thing. That, made by television, how many people would you have to make that show?
Oh, at least 30.
At least 30.
Okay, so
this series is free on here. Lucky lot, lucky lot.
Yeah, it's true actually. The winner underneath the Curly Cocks of Croydon, when dear Lee was here, the right answer was Brazil. The drink was the drink of Brazil, and the winner of that is. And now, look, when you've got your name, you need to contact Michelle, whose details are in the description box between any number of our uploads. Contact her with your address, which we will then pass on to Moth, who will then send you your cocktails.
And aside of all of that, they are really bloody nice, those cocktails.
Well, I keep going to the fridge thinking, brilliant, there's a soft drink.
Christ, I better take them out.
Yeah. Okay, so the answer was Brazil, and the winner under the Curly Cocks. Now, if people don't reply or pick this up within, say, 48 hours or get back to us, we will offer it up to the next person. So the winner underneath the Curly Cooks was Caroline. Your handle is on YouTube, Caroline Faulkner 305.
I think we should allow a bit longer than 48
Caroline Faulkner 305. Okay, well, we'll allow to the weekend.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows Caroline Faulkner, if Caroline Faulkner's in the room, if you see this live, Caroline Faulkner.
We'll put it on our other accounts as well.
Yeah, we'll put it elsewhere. We'll announce it elsewhere. So you've won underneath the Curly Cooks. And underneath Lee Peart's episode 1 of Lee Peart on the Piste, the answer that made Nadia spit her drink out was lavender bitters. I mean, if I had £1 for every lavender bitters alert I got on my phone over
coming up on his phone.
Fucking hell, it's more lavender bitters. The winner of that one, lavender bitters, is handle Adele H 1972. ADELEH 1972. You're also a family guest member. Adele.
Enjoy.
1972. So those are your winners.
Enjoy. And please watch Lee It's on the Piste. Share it. because we want to keep making more fantastic content like this for you.
And I'm literally in discussions with our lovely Lisa. You've got a nice little surprise coming up there too at some point.
So please watch it. Mark's going to put the link underneath here. It's the warm up. It's just a 10-minute episode, and then next week there's a 25-minute. This Saturday, 6 o'clock.
All right.
So it's going to go out every Saturday. Oh no, 7:30.
7:30 this weekend.
7:30 this weekend.
I think we should do more giveaways too. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll hook up with Moth again. So have a lovely day, guys. Something else will be landing.